What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another World Cup 2022 fantasy video, and in this one it's my team selection for Matchday 2, where I will be using the wildcard. You can't activate it until Matchday 1 has ended, but I'm going to show you what the team is currently looking like, and we're going to quickly go through how I'm doing in Matchday 1 as well. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you have not already. So this is Matchday 1. There are still some points to be added unless they change the rules again. So for example, I've got Alba from Spain who's on 9 points. He got a clean sheet and an assist, but he also won the penalty. So he's actually due another 2 points. So he should finish on 11. Obviously that's going to change my overall rank, but I don't think anyone that's won a penalty so far has had their points added. So overall ranks are kind of all over the place. Total points are all over the place, but this is how I'm looking. And I think I did say when I was putting my Matchday 1 team together that I felt the points would be in the defensive positions and also in the forward positions, maybe not quite so much in midfield. And I'm sure some of you have had points from midfielders, but I haven't had many so far. Di Maria and De Paul for Argentina I've put on my bench, and I brought on, I think it was Cancelo and Nunez. And then the players that I've actually had to keep in my team, Eriksen, Skov Olsen and Bergwijn, they all scored 2 points. So midfielders did absolutely nothing for me in Matchday 1, whereas all my defenders so far have at least got me a return. So Mela, Dumfries, clean sheet each, Alba, who I've just spoken about, and Cancelo is still to play, as are both my goalkeepers. So I've got the Uruguay goalkeeper. Hopefully Rocher is the one that lines up in the 11, and if he doesn't get a clean sheet, as long as I'm quick before Portugal kick off, I can put Costa on instead. So overall it's been okay. It's not been anything special. It hasn't been completely awful yet. Messi was my captain. I've changed that to Neymar now, so we'll see what points he gets. So Matchday 1 okay. I've got Rocher, Cancelo for goalkeeper and defenders left, Nunez obviously up front for Uruguay, and Neymar, who's going to be my captain as well. So obviously I'll keep you updated as I go through the videos for Matchday 2, 3, round of 16, etc., what my current rank is, but it's probably never going to be the final one because there's always matches ongoing. So that's Matchday 1. Let's have a look at Matchday 2. So like I said, once Matchday 1 ends, I'm going to activate the wildcard for Matchday 2. That'll give me a completely new team for this week, and then a completely new team for Matchday 3 as well. If you're still unsure about how the wildcard works, go back and watch my Matchday 1 preview video because I've explained it in there. Now this draft as it stands for wildcard Matchday 2 is a little bit different from the video I put out 2 days ago. So I've changed both goalkeepers. I think it's a position where I don't want to spend a huge amount of money. I think it can be better spent in defence and in the forward line in particular. So I had 2 4 million goalkeepers in my original draft. So I had, let me just bring it up here. So I had Rocher for Uruguay, but obviously they're playing Portugal in Matchday 2, which is not ideal. And the other goalkeeper I had was the Ecuador goalkeeper, Galindez, I think that's how you pronounce it. And he's up against Netherlands. So both of those goalkeepers have got tough fixtures. Now it doesn't necessarily matter because they're only 4 million. They're enabling kind of money to be spent elsewhere. But I think given the performances of Japan yesterday and how Costa Rica played, I think going for Gonda is probably a better option. Now, don't get me wrong, Costa Rica had a really tough game against Spain. I actually think Spain came into the tournament probably a little bit, underestimated, right? I think that is just a good team. Obviously, it's hard to know because they've played Costa Rica, they've scored 7 goals. Will they continue to do that to other teams? Will they beat Germany, etc.? We'll have to wait and see, but I still think going for the Japan goalkeeper for 4 million seems like a pretty good gamble. And then I've got Noppert in goal against Ecuador instead. I think that will be quite a tough game for the Netherlands, but ultimately they are odds-on favourite to win, and there is a good chance of a clean sheet. I think Noppert made some saves against Senegal as well. And I think that was his first start for Netherlands or something like that, which is pretty crazy. But either way, for 4.5 million, 8.5 in total, that seems okay to me for the goalkeeper positions. I've also reminded myself that this is a short tournament, right? It's a small or a short format game. Overall ranks and stuff are not going to be kept. I need to have some fun, and for me that is putting England players in. So as we go through the tournament, as long as England are in it, I'm going to try and have 2 to 3 England players in every one of my squads. Obviously, that is a bit of a bias, but who cares, right? It's my team. You don't have to pick them as well. So I've gone for Shaw and Harry Maguire because I can just smell that headed goal from a set piece. It's coming. For whatever reason, right? He doesn't score many goals for Man United, right? And obviously, he's not playing at the moment. But for England, he always seems to be a danger. And it is one of the threats England possess is from set pieces. And obviously, they've got good players like Trippier to, get cross the ball in is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I like Maguire. He is 5.5 million, right? It is cheaper to go for Shaw and Trippier, but I've gone for Maguire instead, and I've put Shaw in. I'll wait and see what the lineup is. As long as Trippier is playing again, which I'm sure he will be, I might swap that. But as I said for match day 1, I think from open play they're as good as each other. If not, Shaw might be slightly more attacking. It just so happens that Trippier usually gets most of their set pieces, so it's a little bit of a trade-off. I don't think it really matters. Just pick one. So I'm going to go for those two against the USA. For what it's worth, I think the USA will definitely pose more problems than Iran did. I think there'll be... It depends how they set up. Like, what the USA don't need to do is show England too much respect. I think if they play like they did against Wales, where they were kind of energetic, they were pressing from the front, they will cause the England defence problems. They're not that comfortable on the ball under pressure. So we'll see how they play. If they sit back, that will play into England's hands. So I've gone for the double defence. I've also got to go for Theo Hernandez. I wanted him in my match day 1 team, but then we kind of got that predicted lineup that said Lucas Hernandez was going to start, which he did obviously, but he's got injured. So Theo Hernandez, while he's fit, should play every single game, and he's very attacking. And yes, that game against Denmark is not necessarily easy. That is their hardest game in the group stages. I just feel like I can't turn down a 5 million French defender who's that attacking, so I'm going to go for him. I've even considered going for the double up with Pavard, but I'll probably wait for that until match day 3. So I'm just going to go for Theo Hernandez. I've still got one Senegal defender, and even though I had 3 in the original video, which is Sabali, who's only 4 million, I'm not quite sure who's the most attacking out of their cheaper defenders, but I just want to pick one of the 4 million defenders to get as much cash elsewhere. Obviously, Sosa could be an option for Croatia as well, but I'm going to go for Senegal against Qatar getting a clean sheet. And then I've gone for Dumfries against Ecuador. I think the way I've set this team up, I've got 6 million to spend on a defender. If I look at the other options, like Van Dijk for me, just, for the same price as Dumfries, just not worth going for. I know he's obviously a threat, a bit like Maguire from set pieces, but Dumfries is just so far up the pitch when they play. I feel like I've got to go for him, because the other options, they've just got slightly tougher fixtures, I would say, for match day 2. So if we go to defenders by price, like Koundé, I've got Theo Hernandez, right? You can get much better options in the French team. I don't think Koundé even played in the first game, did he? No. So you can get much cheaper options in the French team that are more attacking anyway for 5 million. Lisandro Martinez didn't start the last game. I've spoken about Van Dijk. Cancelo, he's playing Uruguay, so that's probably their toughest game. I mean, South Korea with Son might not be that easy, but I think Uruguay is going to be their toughest game, so I don't want to go for him. Meunier just didn't even start the Belgian game. I wasn't that impressed with them at all. They got Morocco, they could score. I like Alba, but again, this is their toughest fixture against Germany. I'll probably get him back in for the Japan game, etc., etc. The list goes on. So it's just a case of I've got that much money to spend. I think Dumfries is the best option from the 6 million. So I could drop that down to 5 million and spend more in midfield or the forward line, but I'm pretty happy with how they look right now. So that's what I'm starting with. 5 at the back just because of the way the fixtures are, and I think that looks pretty solid. Whether or not you should go for double England defence, possibly not, but I don't care. It's my team. I want to have a bit of fun, and that means having Harry Maguire. So my 5 midfielders as it stands are Saka, Di Maria, Kamada, Kostic and Paqueta. Now 2 of those players haven't actually played yet in match day 1 at the time of recording, and that is Kostic and Paqueta. Brazil will actually play Serbia. So I'll take a look at that game, make sure that both start, what kind of positions are they taking up, how attacking are they, etc. Obviously you don't want to take too much away from the Serbian team against Brazil, because that is their hardest game of the group, but it will just be interesting to see who starts, who stays on the pitch for the longest, and like I said, what kind of positions they take up. Essentially, both those players are in my current draft because they are cheap ways into their team. So with Brazil, for example, I've got Neymar, and I'll talk about him when we go through the forwards in a minute, but it's very difficult to get another Brazilian attacker in unless you want to take up a second forward spot for like Rafinha or Richarlison or someone like that. Whereas with Paqueta, he's 7 million and he takes up a midfield spot. So we'll see, obviously whether he starts, how he plays, how kind of forward he's getting and stuff like that. And if he looks good, I think Brazil are kind of odds-on favourite again to win that game against Switzerland. They should dominate it. He could be a good option to get into that team, but take up a midfield spot instead of a forward spot. So that's why he's in right now. And it's similar with Kostic in that Serbia, on paper at least, their best game is probably, or their easiest game, if you want to call it that, is probably Cameroon. And again, they are odds-on favourite to win that game. So I kind of want to get a player from there if I can that's cheap enough. And look, if you're looking at the way the team should set up, and again, we'll see how they they set up against Brazil, Tadic is probably going to be in behind the strikers. So for 8 million, he's probably the best option, but he is 8 million, whereas Kostic is only 6. Obviously, if you've got the money to go Milenkovic, Savic, or even Tadic, you've got 1 million or 2 million more to spend. That's probably where you should go. I just don't have that with the team the way I've set it up. So I've gone for Kostic at 6 million, who should line up on the left. I think he's fairly nailed. I did look at his goals and assists per 90 for Serbia. It's not exactly amazing or anything like that, but like I said, it's just a good price. The one player I've got my eye on, because I did see some predicted lineup saying he could start, is, I'm probably pronouncing all these names wrong, but Zivkovic. He's only 5 million. If he lines up on the right, which I think is where he would play, his goals and assists per 90 record is slightly better than Kostic. Doesn't mean he's going to do better in the groups, of course, but for 1 million less, that might be an even cheaper way into the team that I can then use that 1 million to spend elsewhere. So it's kind of similar to Matchday 1. I just don't see a huge amount of value in the midfield spots versus defence and versus the forward line as well. So that's why Paqueta and Kostic are in. I would say maybe they are the two most likely to change as well, but there's not a huge amount of midfielders at that price which kind of stand out to me that I really like. So I think attacking the fixtures, Switzerland and Cameroon, is probably the tactic that I will go for. I've also put Kamada in, who's only 5.5 million for Japan. Like I've already said with Gonda in goal, Japan were just quite impressive. He should play in that kind of number 10 position, and for 5.5 million, it just looks like a... I had Rodrigo de Paul in, who's only 5 million, but for 0.5 million more to get a more attacking player with probably a better fixture as well. I think, you know, Argentina will do absolutely fine against Mexico, but do I need the triple up again? I would say probably not. So Kamada's in for now because he's only 5.5. Saka makes up my, you know, fun. I want to have a few England players in here. Kind of, you know, he makes up the triple up for England. There's not really any other midfielders that I'd want to go for apart from Bellingham. I mean, Mason Mount could be an option as well. But obviously Sterling, who's likely to play again on the left, takes up a forward spot, and the other option is Harry Kane. So I've not got him in my team, as you can see. I've gone for Saka, Shaw and Maguire. I don't actually think for 8 million Saka is necessarily an amazing pick. I know he got 2 goals in the first game, but Iran did kind of stand off and let England play. I don't think the USA are going to do that, but as long as we get the leaked lineup that Saka is starting again, I probably will go for him. If it's Foden, I might try and find the 0.5 million to go for him instead. I'm not quite sure where I would do that right now. Possibly I would just change Noppert to one of the other 4 million goalkeepers I spoke about and just take the risk that he can get some points. But ultimately, that's why he's in there. And lastly, on Di Maria, I know I said I wasn't that impressed with Argentina, but I've thought about it a bit more. I don't want to change my opinions massively after just one game. Obviously, it is the World Cup. Pressure is on. You lose the first game, that adds massive, massive pressure to the next few games. But Brazil could easily win the next 2. They are still strong favourites for this game. If it wasn't for a few inches on the offside calls, they would have had more goals. I think Di Maria wasn't necessarily as involved as Messi and Lautaro Martinez, etc., but I still think he did okay. And I think for 8.5 million... are there other standout options? Maybe there is. Let me know in the comments below. For Matchday 2 only, do you think there's better ways to spend 8.5? Could I even go for a double up on Serbia? Could I have Tadic and Kostic, right? Save that 0.5 million and spend it elsewhere. Who knows? But I just think Argentina are going to do well against Mexico despite the result against Saudi Arabia. And if he's nailed on to play again, I think he looks like a pretty good option. Because again, if I want to go into that team elsewhere, I'm probably looking at Martinez, and then I've got to take up another forward spot. So that's the problem with this kind of format and the way they set it up. Lots of the really good attacking options you want are listed as forwards. Obviously in FPL, Fantasy Premier League, etc., the likes of kind of... you know, not necessarily Richarlison, but a lot of these players like Neymar, etc., they would probably be listed as midfielders. So you've got to think about how you can get into these teams attacked that are going to probably score a good amount of goals with midfielders instead. And that is basically why I've chosen Di Maria. But I am open to be persuaded to go elsewhere. So if you think any of these midfield players, maybe don't try and convince me about not having Saka. That would be difficult to do. But Di Maria, Kostic and Paqueta, are there better ways to spend that money? Comments below. And then with the forwards, 2 of the spots are pretty easy to pick, right? Messi and Neymar. They were in my Matchday 1 squad, they're in my Matchday 2 squad, and they're going to be in my Matchday 3 squad as well. Great chance for goals, assists, penalties. They're nailed on to start. And unless they're kind of 5-6-0 up, they're probably going to be on the pitch for most of the 90 minutes as well. Obviously, before I lock in the Matchday 3 wildcard, I will have a think about possible rotation. But with Messi, for example, he's going to start in Matchday 2 and 3 because they've just lost to Saudi Arabia. With Brazil, it will depend on what happens in their games and the other games in the group, but we can worry about that in match day 3. For match day 2, they're both in, and they will probably be my captains like they were in match day 1. Obviously, I've seen Messi got 6 points. I don't know what Neymar is going to get yet, but hopefully he does well. The other player that's not in this squad that a lot of people will be thinking about, I guess, is Harry Kane. He should be fine for England. He's definitely an option against the USA, but more so probably Mbappe, right? A lot of people are looking at him. Now, if I was to downgrade Saka to a 6.5 midfielder or Di Maria to a 7 million midfielder, I could afford to do Lewandowski to Mbappe. And that might not be a bad option because I think France are just so strong. Although Denmark is the toughest game in their group, they've still obviously got potential to score goals in that game. And if they do, Mbappe will probably be involved with it. But I think if I'm going to go against him and if I'm happy to captain Messi and Neymar, I don't need to force that 1.5 million. So I will only do it if I'm happy enough to downgrade elsewhere, and I'm not sure I'm going to be. So as it stands, I've got 10 million to spend and I've gone for Lewandowski. Now, I'm still not 100% sure about him. I'm just not really that confident with that Poland side. I think they're almost like a little bit too cautious sometimes. He is on penalties. I know he missed one in match day 1, but usually you'd expect him to kind of put those away. So that's obviously a plus as well. And when I looked at the odds for goal scorers for match day 2, he's right up there as one of the favourites to score. And again, Saudi Arabia did do really well against Argentina. The crowd is going to be behind them for this game, and I'm sure they'll do well again. But I think Lewandowski will still get some chances. So he's in right now. But when I guess when I look at this team, there's two options, right? You either downgrade one of the midfielders to upgrade Lewandowski to Kane or Mbappe. Obviously, if I went for Kane, I'd have to drop one of the other England players. Or you downgrade Lewandowski to someone around the 8 million mark and use that money to either upgrade a midfielder or put even more money into the defence and goalkeepers. That's basically my two options. And when you look at the kind of forwards, right? So Lewandowski is one of the most expensive. Ronaldo, let's see how Portugal do in match day 1. But again, Uruguay is probably their toughest fixture, so I won't take too much from the Ghana game, but I could look at him. Lukaku's injured. I'm not going for Muller. And Kunku's not even in the squad. I don't know why he's still in the game. Gnabry, 9 million, doesn't really float my boat, to be honest. I don't think I necessarily want to take up another spot with another Brazilian player, but Richarlison, if he's going to be Brazil's number 9, that is a tempter, and he's only, 7.5 million. So that is pretty cheap, right? I could go for Lautaro Martinez and go triple up on Argentina attack and not have the Paul and just have Martinez instead. So they are all options, but I'm just not sure I really fancy any of them. Like Depay could be an option against Ecuador. He'll almost certainly be in my team, I expect, for match day 3 against Qatar. Again, depending on whether there's going to be possible rotation. But I just don't know if I want him for match day 2. So it's tricky to kind of pick anyone else. And I think with the fixture, Lewandowski still looks pretty good. So that's where I've gone. But that is the two options I'm looking at. Either downgrade Lewandowski to someone like Richarlison or one of the 8 million forwards and upgrade elsewhere, or downgrade one of the midfielders and just get Mbappe or Kane in. That's my two options, I think. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this team as a whole. Are there any massive mistakes you think I've made? If you've enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And I'll catch you again soon.